Welcome to the garden. Some really powerful things happened this week around here that I'd love to share with you all. I'm a person who is always looking for the greater meaning of situations in life. For whatever reason, I've just always been this way, where if there's some hardship and I'm finding myself in the cloud of the hardship, I'm always trying to poke my head up and out and say, okay, like what's the greater purpose of this? What's the lesson to be had here? And I've really been digging deep on that with everything that all of us are going through right now. We're feeling everything that everyone else is feeling too. And it's not normal, you know, what we're all going through. It's a pretty extraordinary time, but an extraordinary time that gives us the ability to grow if we decide to. I have never been a person who appreciated people who studied history, like history majors when I was in college. I was like, man, like, what are you gonna do with that? Why even waste our time looking back when we could be looking forward and what we want to be like manifesting and creating for the future? But I was really shown the error of that thinking this week when I heard this one really powerful podcast, which I'll link here after this video. I listen to a lot of podcasts as I'm working about the farm, like tending to the birds or cleaning the brooders, packing, sorting things. There's just a lot of solitary hours in that. And so I try and keep my mind active. And this one random like cross-pollination podcast popped up in a stream that I wouldn't normally listen to. And it was on the 30-year anniversary. This year is the 30-year anniversary of the ADA Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I was like, well, I don't know if that'll be that interesting, but I'll give it a listen. Oh my goodness. It was so powerful. I think the most powerful podcast I've ever heard, because I'm 35. 35, 36, I'm 35. I'm 35, and in 30 years, so much has changed in terms of how we treat people with disabilities or people who look different. To me, it's just commonplace to, you know, have bathrooms that are ADA accessible in a restaurant or hotels or in movie theaters. But 30 years ago, that was not the case. And even just a few years prior to that, it was illegal for people who looked different. They had ugly laws for people who had disabilities or missing limbs or something going on with their face that would make other people uncomfortable. They'd be fined for being in public. After hearing this podcast and all of the history behind it and how it was just commonplace and the really hard to hear things that we did in this country and other countries to people with disabilities, and then how in just 30 years that can change so rapidly. It was so hard to hear what we had done, but it was so inspiring as to how fast, if we have our hearts open and we're willing to put in the work, we can do amazing things. I'm gonna start crying because I feel like it applies exactly to what's happening with race in terms of how we need to be treating people differently. It applies to the environment. It applies to all of these major issues that COVID's really ripped the covers off of. And here we are, like having to look at all of it and be really humbled with the catch-up work that we need to do. I had this conversation with my 3-year-old about throwing something away. In my house, if you don't know, if you haven't been following us for a while, we're doing everything we can to minimize the amount of waste we're putting into the world. Because if you think about it, your trash can that's taken away every week and, you know, neatly tucked away somewhere else where you don't see it, that is going somewhere. It's going into our landfills and they're filling up. Or it ends up in the ocean and the oceans are filling up, and this is not a good legacy to be leaving our future generations. It's a problem that's fairly recent with the amount that we consume, And I'm hoping that it's a problem that we can rectify also swiftly. My husband has just been trying to fix things that break as they break, and we do our best to save up and buy things that are quality so they don't break. But before we decided to take on this journey of creating less waste, I had things in our life that weren't quality, that were going to break really quick, and one of those toys broke that was of my son's, and my husband looked at it and was like, we can't fix this. So we threw it away, and my son said, well, where is it? I said, honey, we had to throw it away. And he looked at me with this like perplexed look. He's like, away? And I said, yeah. And the trash man came, we put it in the trash can, he took it away. And he said, well, where does it go? And I said, well, to the landfill. What's the landfill? It's a place where things that are thrown away go. He said, in the earth? What happens? And I was like, it was so hard to look at him in the eyes, knowing I'm talking to the future generation, and say, yeah, like I threw something away that's gonna be here for thousands of years. Your generation's gonna have to deal with that. The other powerful piece of that moment of him asking me that question is how foreign that idea was to him of throwing something away. In just his 3 little short years of being alive and seeing how we're trying to live and what we're doing, he understands that you just try and fix things. You save things, try not to waste things. If there's extra food and we can't eat it, or it's kind of going south, we can feed it to the chickens, or we can compost it. We don't put it in the trash. He sees a meaning for everything. I bring this story up to tie into the podcast I heard and to the radical change that can happen so swiftly if we just all get on board and do it. If we can dream it, if we're willing to fight for it, if we can be loud enough so that laws can change and our personal actions change and our daily interactions with things or people, in one generation, all of this could be a thing where our children have the same reaction I had to the ADA of like, people were treated that way? The earth was treated that way? This is really powerful. And I hope that you all breathe this in with me, that this is a possibility. These things aren't just some ne'er-do-well dream. If we want them, we can make them happen. We can make them happen in one generation. I hope that this finds you all well. I know that this time is so challenging for all of us. I hope that, like me, you can find some greater meaning in all of it, that it's an invitation to make the changes that we've been asked to make, but maybe haven't felt like we had the time, the space, education, ability, whatever it is. A lot of us have the time now, we have the space now. Yeah, it's been a powerful week. On the farm front, things are beginning to wind down. We are going to have our last shipping day be October 20th. It's a Tuesday of our chicks. We'll continue shipping our hatching eggs year-round of our quail. I don't think we're going to be shipping fertile chicken eggs anymore because people have a really hard time hatching them, and it requires a lot of work back and forth of coaching people. And as our farm grows, which I'm so grateful for, that you all support us, you support our vision of treating animals well, going plastic free, going zero waste, trying to educate the world on that, all the things that we stand for as a small family farm, you all have come out of the woodwork and supported that. I'm so grateful that you're on that journey with us. Thank you. And the farm gets to grow because of it. We get to reach more people, make more donations, dig deeper, have more outreach. It also means that there's less time that I'm able to be on the computer. Right now, I do a lot of customer service. It's about 8 hours a day of me writing back to people. And at some point, something's got to give, because I want to also be present here on the farm and with the family. So I don't think we're going to be shipping the fertile chicken eggs anymore, because it's one more customer service piece that I gotta cap it somewhere so I can be as present as I can for everyone. I'm really grateful for all of you. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. It's a long 10 minutes, but from my heart to yours, I hope that you take the time to listen to this podcast that really inspired me. It's probably not the best for really young ears unless you're right there with them talking through it, because there's a lot of hardship that's described, and so you'd want to really have good conversations around all of it, and a lot of it's more adult. So listen to it first if you're a parent, and then talk about those things with your kids and how fast things can change, because it was a great source of hope for me and inspiration. I hope it provides the same for you. Here's a big hug from all of us to you.